Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 3rd, 2015 edition of the O'Hara News and Editorial. Glad to be back. I know it's been a little while. We're going to have a free-for-all tonight. James and I were bored, so we decided to have a free-for-all. We got a lot of good stories to cover tonight. It's been a while. There's a lot of interesting things that have happened in the past couple of weeks. But we are going to start with a story that James wanted to cover. Coming from none other than the community of the wrongfully accused. We almost
One of my
always,
favorite
yes,
sites.
almost always seem to cover one of their articles on each and every one of our shows, and always a great pleasure to read their articles and to do analysis. So, James, take it away.
Okay, as Robert said, coming out of the community of the wrongly accused, we have the University of Wisconsin panel discussion. Men accused of rape should not be innocent until proven guilty. This article is unfucking believable. I'm starting the cussing right away. You hear this, Robert?
Yeah, I
We
heard you.
haven't even started into the show, and I'm already cussing.
It's okay.
The anti-due process voices on campus aren't bothering to sugarcoat their message anymore. At Berkeley last week, students protested the very notion that their classmates accused of rape should be treated fairly. At Ohio University the week before, angry protesters called due process for college men accused of rape bullshit. At Penn, angry law students objected to the very idea that 16 of their law professors would go to bat for fair procedures in sexual assault cases. And last night, anti-due process voices dominated a panel discussion on campus rape at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. According to the College Fix, which is a separate site, a woman who identified herself as a teaching assistant stood up and said she did not feel that the notion of innocent until proven guilty should apply to rape cases because it only helps protect the rights of the accused instead of the victim. Only one of the panel members spoke out in disagreement with this statement. Klingel, the law professor, said that because she was a legal scholar, she had to disagree with this premise. One student said she was horrified to discover that her accused rapist had due process rights. The rights that troubled her included the right to a hearing and the right to have a written summary of allegations from the accuser. She also decried the fact that, quote, he was not required to speak in his defense. According to one account, a purported rape victim said that the University of Wisconsin's policy is designed to protect the rights of the perpetrator. I'm fairly certain that this is not the University of Wisconsin's policy. A university's policy should be to protect the rights of the presumptively innocent, since they may be factually innocent. But we know that colleges aren't doing that. The impulse to eradicate sexual violence is a noble one, but sadly, the rhetoric employed by modern feminists in pursuit of that goal is animated by a disturbing hostility to the due process rights of the presumptively innocent. This is anything but a liberal or progressive position. It is in fact a chilling echo of the lynch mobs that gathered at the hanging trees of the old American South, for whom due process was a luxury society could not afford when it came to black men accused of rape. Anyone who believes that the war on rape can't be waged without dispensing with fairness for the accused is woefully unschooled in concepts that are foundational to our traditions of justice, concepts that predate even Magna Carta. We don't require fairness in tribunals to protect rapists, but to protect the innocent. And Blackstone's formulation is a cornerstone of a civilized people. Dispensing with fairness for the accused not only hurts the innocent, it undermines trust in the system, which hurts rape victims. Yet last night, at a major university, supposedly educated people openly disagreed with a notion that until recently seemed beyond debate: innocent until proven guilty. At least they disagreed with it when it comes to one class of citizens accused of one type of offense. The discourse borders on pathology. We are sometimes told that not all feminists are like that. Well, if that is so, where are the sane and rational voices of feminism to condemn this star chamber mentality? All persons of goodwill will need to stand up and declare enough is enough. All right. Robert, what do you think of that?
Another great article by Pierce Harlan. Just really nails on the head
Absolutely
every time.
magnificent.
This is the thing. This is what we're well. This is what they've been saying all along. There's this terrible problem we have with rape everywhere, and rape is so terrible. And because it's so terrible, we have to do away with due process rights for the accused, and this is completely backwards. The more terrible the alleged crime, the higher the standard of evidence should be, the more the accused should be protected by due process rights. It's the cornerstone of our justice system.
Here's what gets me, though, is you've got these asshats running around screaming, "I've been raped,"
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they're pointing a finger. And we're expected to believe that just because the words exited their mouth and they pointed a finger, that must be the guy. And he's no longer the presumptively innocent. He is the rapist before anything has ever begun.
And this it's not this is something that they're and this whole thing that's happening on our universities, on our college campuses. This is not it's more than just a witch hunt. It's more than just hysteria. These people have an agenda. They want to do away with due process rights. They're not going to stop with those accused of rape. They're not going to stop there. These people, it's very important that people understand that feminism is a statist ideology. And the enemy of the state is due process. It is the barrier between the state and the individual. And people who are statists do not like due process rights. You see this every single time. They hate civil rights. They hate the right to free speech.
I don't see how this is any different than the Inquisition.
No. But it's more. The thing is it's more diabolical than that. Since those days, since the witch hunts of the 17th century, and the Inquisition of the 16th century, 15th, 16th centuries, those two periods of history were what started this idea of, hey, before we kill somebody or take their property or beat them up or torture them, there needs to be a trial, because too many innocent people get killed for stupid reasons, because they're a Jew, or because someone said they're a witch. Someone said they cast a spell on their daughter. How can you disprove that? How can someone defend themselves from such a crazy allegation?
She turned me into a newt.
How can someone defend themselves? And so clearly, people in the Enlightenment age, people started saying, just after the Renaissance we started getting into the 1600s, 1700s. We had these people who call themselves Enlightenment thinkers, as the Age of Reason. They started saying, listen, it is really important that we protect the individual from the state, because we need to have a boundary here. And what they came up with is this idea of, first of all, the presumption of innocence. And then they came up with due process. And this eventually evolved over the course of 150 years. It culminated in the American Bill of Rights. That's how this happened. It happened to protect it. And now what's happening is we have this wonderful Constitution, which has worked so well for so long to keep this crazy stuff from happening again. These people who, and again, I don't think it's hysteria. It is what's driving this is political power and money. These people want money, and if you look behind all the jokers behind these things, you got the Glory Reds who are raking in the cash. You have the college administrators, the Title IX administrators who are raking in the cash. Their
Oh
salaries have
God, yeah.
exploded over the past several years because now they have this new job, which is basically the inquisitor. That's what they are on campus. True, that's what they are. They are the inquisitor, and
I have to do it. I have to
they're
do it.
going to
Can I
get
do
the
it?
council together, and the
Can I
council's
do it?
made up. Sure,
I,
go ahead.
the Inquisition, what a show. The
We need to get
Inquisition, here we go. You know you're wishing that we'd go away. But the Inquisition's here and it's here to stay. I
Mel
mean,
Brooks could never
ah,
make that movie. He
oh,
could never make that
God.
movie today. He could never make Blazing Saddles either. He could never.
No, no, he couldn't do any of that. He'd be accused of rape.
He'd be accused of rape.
Right.
He's being rapist. I mean, gosh. I mean, Blazing Saddles. That was just like rape culture
Yeah,
all
oh,
the
oh,
time.
God, yeah.
That was rape. But
That
anyway,
was rape
that's
culture.
yeah. That's what's going on here. And so now you have all this new wave of administrators that are being this new category of administrators that are being created because of this, and they love this. Now we have schools that have much more administrators now, so now the price of education is going to go up. More people are going to have jobs, and oh, if innocent men get kicked out of the school system, well, who cares? But then again, it's just an incubator for what they eventually want to do, which is to do away with due process for everybody. What their intention is to go ahead and let this stew for a while, and then let these new rules be established on college campuses. Then they'll go to their state and federal legislators and say, hey, look at all the, quote, progress that we have made in the past several years in dealing with sexual assault cases. We should apply these rules to the actual criminal statutes. We
Yep.
should do away with due process. And if you don't think that that's coming down the pike, you're dreaming. You're dreaming. This is what these people have had. This is what these people have been talking about for a very long time. They've been talking about this. That meant that the onus the onus of evidence of proving who's guilty should be. They've been saying this for years that the onus should be on the accused to prove that they're not guilty. They've been saying that for years. They've been saying for years they should do away with due process. For years. And now they have a foothold in our education system, and they fought very hard for a long time to get a foothold there. And this is what they're doing with it. This is what they're doing with it. There's a reason. This isn't just some crazy hysterical witch hunt. There's an agenda here, a very scary one.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, there was an agenda 500 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, those people
was a
honestly
huge
thought
land. It was a huge land grab because, I mean,
yeah,
the same motivators apply today as they did 500 years. I'm just saying. I'm just building the parallels.
Yeah, there was money and political agendas back
I mean,
then.
it wasn't just some peasant girl running around going, "There be a witch." No, it wasn't like that. It was prominent individuals pointing at other prominent individuals who were moneyed, and they knew that they'd be getting a kickback from the church for pointing out the next dastardly individual.
Yeah.
Same thing, man. I mean, this is what it's come to. Only, in order for it to come to that in this day and age, they have to remove the law, and
that's what they want to do.
And that is something that did not exist during the times of the Inquisition. Like you said, the law was a result of that time period. Today, they actually have to roll that back, and that's what we're here for, folks, is to keep that from happening. Okay?
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's why we do this. I mean, someone's got to do something.
Yep. Letting other people know what is out there, that's our job. News and editorial.
So
I know where I won't be going to college.
Yeah, right. We don't know where we're not going to be sending our our sons to college. Yeah.
And then these people are going to wonder, are going to wonder why all of a sudden um, their ability to collect funds for tuition is going down. It's because not enough people are applying.
Right.
And call it sexist if you want, but when men don't apply to college, women start to apply to college less and less. I think we're going to end up seeing a huge drop over the next 20 years of female college applicants if men are not showing up to college.
Yeah, right. Because whether I mean, as sexist as it may sound, many young women, they want to meet their future husbands at the school they go to because they don't want to. I mean, why? Most women they
Well, they want to fall in love, get married, have kids, do all that happy stuff, and you can't do that if there's no men around, can you?
they're not going to marry the carpenter's son. They're not going to marry the guy that's getting his certificate in plumbing. They're not going to do that.
Or they may not have a
Maybe they
choice.
will. At that point, maybe plumbers will. I know plumbers make pretty damn good money now. But anyway.
So what have you got for us?
Okay, actually, this is a very interesting segue into my story. The story is coming from Newark, New Jersey. Expert can't. This is coming from NewJersey.com. This is a story that I've been covering for almost a year now. It's about a woman who had sex. She was into facilitated communication. That's where people who are severely autistic or who have cerebral palsy or some severe mental handicap, they can't talk for whatever reason, and there's some question as to whether or not they have anything to talk about. Some question as to how sentient they actually are. But there's this field of study called facilitated communication where they have these, quote, experts come and they assist these people to type on computer keyboards, and then these people start writing wonderful poems and stories, and they start talking to their families for the very first time, even though they've never even learned how to read or write. They just sort of do this, and their critics, of course, are saying, "Hey, look, this is all a big hoax. These people are they're hoax, they're crooks, or they themselves are mentally deranged. Maybe they're swept away with this altruistic idea that they're actually helping these people when in fact they're not." So the whole thing is very controversial. I'm sure many people are listening right now are familiar with the controversy. But anyway, this woman, Anna Stubenfeld from Rutgers University, had sexual relations with this one of her quote clients. She's 40. Gosh, she's my age now. She's 45 now, 44. And this guy was much younger than she was. He was 31 or 32, I think. But she says that he told her that he was in love with her and wanted to get married to her, and she started having sex with him, and she told the parents that they were in love and they had already had sex. Well, the parents, they pressed charges for sexual assault, and she was arraigned on charges, and now the hearings are going on right now, and there have already been several hearings, but in this case, this comes to us on February, a couple weeks ago, and this piece is written by Bill Weichert, and it is titled "Expert Can't Prove She Can Communicate." And the whole controversy, the whole question is whether or not this guy was even actually able to give consent. And does her saying that she gave consent constitute consent? So here we are at this quandary, and the title of the story is "Expert Can't Prove She Can Communicate with Disabled Man Who May Be Victim of Sexual Assault, Judge Rules." Accused of sexually assaulting a severely mentally disabled man, Rutgers Newark professor Anna Stubblefield had sought to present an expert at her upcoming trial to show the alleged victim was able to give consent. But since that defense expert improperly assisted the man during an examination, a Superior Court judge said on Thursday that the evaluation cannot be presented to the jury. Judge Siobhan Tier ruled the expert Rosemary Crossley will not be allowed to testify in regard to her assessment of the alleged victim known as DJ. The evaluation was meant to test DJ's ability to communicate. The judge found Crossley's methods were, quote, unreliable because she assisted DJ in moving a communication device during the assessment. But Steubenfeld's attorney, James Patton, said he is still requesting that Crossley be permitted to testify at the trial about the methodology used by the state's experts in evaluating DJ if those experts are allowed to testify. Those experts have determined DJ did not have the ability to consent to the sexual activity. Crossley, who lives in Australia, has said she is an AAC, quote, AAC specialist, referring to argumentative and alternative communication. In her evaluation, Crossley said she found DJ, quote, wanted to communicate and was able to communicate, given appropriate strategies. Stubblefield, 45, of West Orange, has been charged with repeatedly sexually assaulting DJ in her Newark office in 2011. She was indicted in January 2013 on 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault. Rutgers placed Stubblefield on administrative leave without pay and stripped her of the title of chairwoman of the philosophy department after the sexual assault allegations surfaced. Her trial is scheduled to begin in April. Definitely going to be watching for that. TIER ruled last month that a document detailing the sexual relationship is admissible at the trial. Stubblefield's ex-husband had turned over that document to the prosecutors. At the center of the case is a controversial technique championed by Stubblefield known as, quote, facilitated communication. Stubblefield has asserted that the technique allows the disabled to communicate with the assistance of a, quote, facilitator who helps guide the individual's hand as it moves over a keyboard or steadies the body so he or she can strike keys. After meeting DJ in 2008 through his brother, Stubblefield allegedly worked with him with the technique and brought him along to conferences where she held him out as a success story, according to a lawsuit filed against her by DJ's family. Stubblefield revealed to DJ's mother and brother in May 2011 during a meeting at their home that she had sexual relations with DJ. The lawsuit states, in August 2011, the family went to Rutgers police, who contacted Essex County prosecutors. But TIER ruled last year that expert testimony about facilitated communication was inadmissible at trial because she determined it is an unrecognized field of science, the judge said on Thursday. Since the methods used by Crossley were similar to facilitated communication, her analysis is invalid, according to TIER. After the hearing, however, Payton argued Crossley's assessment of DJ did not involve facilitated communication. Quote, it was an assessment of his ability to communicate, Patton said outside the courtroom, adding that the assessment was not based on facilitated communication. It did not comment on facilitated communication. Interesting. So, in addition to this being a real heinous sexual assault case, what's at stake here for these people is this whole facilitated communication. This is kind of like a cult of people who, I think, and many people believe, prey on the wishes, on the hopes, the desperate hopes of parents and relatives of severely disabled people who can't communicate. And in this case, this woman sexually exploited this man for a time, for quite a while. I think it was over a year. And I think it's more than doubtful that this guy could even consent to having sex. It's pretty sad, actually. But I did some research on this woman from Australia, this Crossley woman. She's one of the big champions of this field. She's the one who wrote the first papers. But basically, this is nothing more than someone poising a severely disabled person in front of a computer monitor with a keyboard and helping them type letters. And they're trying to use this, and this is what they tried to do to get this guy to say he consented to having sex. To say it wasn't facilitated communication is just absolutely ridiculous. It's exactly what it was. So this lawyer's grabbing at straws. He's saying simply because they didn't comment on it, it doesn't mean that that's not what it was. It is what it was. and the judge saw that. I'm amazed at the fight that these people are putting up for this woman's Stubblefield. And I'm amazed more people aren't talking about this. I'm
Oh,
amazed.
the whole field is in danger over
Yeah,
this.
but I'm amazed that this
There's a
has
lot
not.
of there's a lot of money going
Yeah,
about. I mean, this
I'm
is
amazed that this hasn't made national news. I mean, this guy who's writing these stories, he's the only guy who's covering this. This Bill Whiteshirt guy, and I
yeah.
know why.
Well, we've
The other
seen
guy's,
this before, haven't we?
yeah, sure.
I
This is,
mean,
I mean, again. This is imagine if the if the genders were reversed, and this was a male communicative facilitation expert who had sex with
my God, not it would not only be
it would
all over
just it would
every news channel.
first of all the guy would be abandoned by his colleagues.
Yep.
He'd be pilloried by his colleagues. He would not get the same treatment that this Anna Stubblefield is getting now from her colleagues. The
In
guy
fact,
would be
they're the
cast out,
due
thrown under a
process.
bus. Yeah, then they would and they would do this in order to they would do this to that guy in order to defend their field, saying this guy he's a malpracticer, he doesn't do that. Well, but they're doing the exact opposite here with this woman. Why? Why?
Well, we'll see, and we'll see what a jury thinks, right?
Mhm. Right. Well,
I mean,
I think we'll come
some
to that.
people are holding the smoking gun, and you could pretty much say, okay, well, chances are, OJ did it. Yeah, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
but hey, that's and I have to agree with the judge. It was a bunch of bullshit with uh, the expert witness that
Yeah.
they tried to bring in. I'm glad he saw through that. I mean, that's measure of logic. Imagine that coming out of the court system, and we'll see what a jury of her peers happens to think.
Right. We'll see.
And that's all I'm going to comment. As far as that is concerned.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching the watching for the trial in April. It's going to be. I'm really interested to see how the whole thing. Well, I mean, I'm pretty certain that any trial, the way things are going now, things just aren't looking good for her, and rightfully so. But I'm interested to see what happens. I'm interested to see the press's reaction. But so far, this is the other thing: the press just isn't covering this. Why? Why? I mean, it's a big deal. This is real. I mean, it's definitely very dramatic. It's definitely got all the juicy things that you want to see. Sexual exploitation, all those other things that the press like to plaster all over the TV screens. As long as the perp is a man, of course. But when it's a woman, oh no, we can't have that. But
Well, unless it's a Jodi Arias style, and then
sure,
it's
yeah,
just good television.
that's right.
the, uh, the way everyone watches that shit, it might as well just be another episode of Bad Girls, right?
Right, sure, exactly. Well,
Right.
that's it. That's it, James. She's older. She's over the age of 40. No one wants to look at her anyway. That's the other thing.
There you go.
She had to go pick on a mentally disabled guy to get her jollies.
My God, dude, we are saying so many things right now, and for some reason, with half the stuff we're saying, like every other sentence, I'm seeing an entire Tumblr post about us in my head.
Absolutely.
It's just, I'm like, oh wow. Oh, well, what else do we have here? Oh, I'm going to go with a little bit of funny going on here. Okay?
All right. Roll with it.
This is coming out, speaking of Tumblr, this is coming out of Tumblr. There's this called a philo-satire, billed as smartass commentary on the philosophical community's hottest debates. And one particular post really caught my eye. It's called the unfair expectation of evidential support spurs movement. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and read. Keep in mind, folks, this is satire. Okay? All right. It will be obvious to anyone who has recently attended a philosophy conference or followed any of several popular philosophy blogs that a toxic climate holds sway. Philosophers giving talking or posting on feminist philosophy, disability, social justice, site visits, race, etc., are being asked to support their views with reasons. The tactic will be a familiar one. I understand your claim, but have you given any reason for us to accept it? Is there an argument here? Is there a philosophically interesting position you're defending? And other completely offensive comments. They are all too common. We are here to provide a space for those with similar experiences to talk about what it's like to face requirements for evidential support for philosophical and ethical claims or theories. Respect for short. While we invite others to share their horror stories about being asked to justify their statements with evidence, it is at least as important to say what we at No Respect are doing about it. Initially, it was suggested that whenever such requests for evidence are presented, usually by white men, but sadly often by women, minorities, and other collaborators, those interested in social justice should jump to their feet and scream, "Privilege!" at the offender. However, there are so many such occasions for screaming that the oppressed speakers were not able to finish their talks. One particularly bad incident occurred during the keynote address at the Midwestern Society for Pluralism, when everyone in the audience started screaming at one another. Further, it was pointed out that the ability to scream privilege louder than others is itself a kind of privilege. So our next effort involved printing privilege t-shirts, now available for $20 at the Philosatire's online store. The idea was that instead of screaming, others stand and point to their shirts when someone offensively suggests that a speaker hasn't given any argument. While this keeps disruption to a minimum, it was felt that these efforts ignored the different metrics on and degrees with which power can still oppress. So the t-shirts, now available for $10 at the online store, were supplanted with scarlet Phi badges. The brilliant engineers at No Respect have designed them to grow or shrink in size in direct proportion to the levels of privilege someone has. For example, the badge of a white male philosopher who does philosophy of mathematics might be seen as the size of a $50 while conversing with similar philosophers. But if he walks into a room with an African American woman who does disability studies, it might approach the size of a dinner plate. The badges of an untenured gay cis male philosopher working on standpoint theory, and that of a senior transgendered woman doing any analytic philosophy of mind, will approach equilibrium in accordance with the second law of privilege dynamics, hereafter PD. We are currently requesting that the American Privilege Association require all members to wear them at public functions. Unfortunately, the badges are still in the experimental stage. Our engineers are not sure what will happen, say, if Kwame Anthony Appiah and Sally Haslanger were on a discussion panel with a white male professor who has a degree from a B school and who is adjuncting at a community college in rural Arkansas. Some think the badge will become a singularity, while others suggest more worryingly that the result will be akin to the crossing of the streams. In any event, they hold more promise than the t-shirts. now available free with a paid subscription to Hypatia. We encourage further stories about what it's like to be faced with the indignity of respect, and we look forward to reporting on other advancements in PD. For those unfamiliar with the literature, the first law of privilege dynamics suggests that when a privileged philosopher is being ridiculed, berated, or otherwise disparaged for any reason by a member of a less powerful group, he needs to just sit there and shut the fuck up. So what'd you think?
Whole
What, Robert?
I mean, it's like this whole identifying, like who are the privileged group, who's the privileged group, and who's not. Always seems to be what these people want it to be, and never. I mean, they always seem to be the ones that want to define it. Feminists, they want to say, well, I'm underprivileged because this, that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and then they use this as it's a way to it's a label to put on people. It's basically it's an extension of Marxist class warfare theory. Is what it is.
That's yep. Oh man.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what it is. Do we have a chat room for this, James?
Well, I mean, there's sort of a chat room. When people watch the live show, we've got a live chat running. It's a Google thing, man.
Do we have access to it?
Yes, we do. Just actually here, I'll drop you the link in Skype. Just make sure that you stop the video, or you'll be hearing yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can see live commentary as it happens. Imagine that.
All right. Well, let's see what's going on.
So this is something that feminists use on a regular basis, the concept of privilege. And you will see plenty of other social justice groups out there use the concept of privilege. The concept of privilege is used in order to shut down a conversation. All it does is detract from being able to present an opinion or the truth. Oh my God, you have no idea how many times I've put the truth onto something and I've been told to shut up
Because you're privileged.
Yep.
Therefore, nothing you say can be
2
true.
plus 2 is 4. Oh my God, you were so mathematically privileged.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
out of here.
Exactly. It is a way to derail the conversation. It's a way. It's a way to indoctrinate and sucker people into believing anything.
Well, it's also a way to create a victim class. Because you can't. Well, I mean, like you said, you've got to have these labels in order to proclaim a victim status, or in order to proclaim an oppressor. And if you don't happen to belong to the oppressor group, then you all of a sudden have something to fight for. And you know what? Golly gee, you might get something out of it if you fight hard enough. Like the following. Just like the following. I have to do this. I have the perfect segue. You ready for this?
Sure, go ahead.
Coming out of the Korea Times. Weird article for it to come out of the Korean Times here. Women to make up half the winners in local French elections. This is from the Associated Press in Paris. In France's upcoming local elections, one thing is certain. Women will win half the seats. After years of largely failed efforts to get more women in politics, electoral officials devised a new rule for March 22nd and March 29th elections. Instead of voting for a single candidate, citizens will vote for tickets, each composed of one man and one woman. Each winning ticket gets both of its candidates to the council. The new system will change the face of the councils, where currently only 16% of members are women, and most members are white men over 60. We'll get back to that point in just a second. But one looming problem remains. There's no guarantee that women, once elected, will get equal access to the top positions of these councils. Only 6 of 101 existing councils are currently led by a woman. And many voters still don't know about the new system. The councils oversee France's departments, regional bodies that manage such services as welfare payments, road maintenance, and some schools. Voters are choosing 4,108 local council members across France, except in the cities of Paris and Lyon, which have a particular status. Quote,
It's too bad to acknowledge that a law is needed to help women working their way in politics, but that is probably a necessity,
said Claude Danillion, a 24-year-old running for the Socialist Party in the southern city of Carcassonne. Without the voting reform, she said,
I wouldn't have been able to run for the position, not at my age. It's a chance for us and it's a chance for us and a chance for democracy because it means that the candidates and so the elected ones will look more like the French population,
she said. Now, France gave women the vote in 1944, a year before the end of World War II. While France has family-friendly government policies that encourage women in the workforce, we'll get back to that, it has never had a woman president and has been slow to welcome women in political power. No fewer than 9 laws regarding gender parity in politics have passed in France in recent years, yet only a quarter of parliament members are women. Camille Hollebeck, a 25-year-old socialist candidate in Bordeaux, noted that political parties
had to find new faces
in order to be able to compose the new tickets. And on those tickets,
it's often the man who is representing experience and the woman youth and renewal,
she said. Female candidates report that they are often a source of surprise to the French voters, who are discovering the new voting systems and sometimes mistakenly think the women are the alternate candidate instead of equal members of the ticket. Lord Townley, 33, history and geography teacher running for the UMP party line in the city of Annecy near the Alps, says the new rule is going to change quite a lot the atmosphere in local councils.
The challenge will then consist of not being stuck in the functions traditionally attributed to women, such as social activities and youth policies, as opposed to oversight over finances, usually given to men,
she explained. The High Council of Equality between Women and Men, a government-sponsored body, called last week for all political parties to promote better power sharing between women and men. Romain Sabatier, the Council's General Secretary, told the AP that the body would study whether the campaign is truly equal, asking questions like, is the man more often in the foreground on the election posters? Do both candidates have an equal speaking time during political rallies? We cannot accept such obvious inequalities of positions of power anymore, Sabatier said. Holy crap, dude. That article was just full of it. I mean,
yeah, it was.
You could just read between the lines, man. Just read between the lines to that whole article. It's a thing of innuendo from start to finish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh, what's going on in France, man?
So here we go. Here we go. We've got all these voters who have no idea that they're actually voting for who they're voting for, and yet they're still not equal enough. You're getting a man and a woman into the council seats, but it's still not equal enough. You've passed 9 laws, 9 fucking laws concerning equality and political power in France, but it's still not equal enough. Does it sound to you like women just don't want to fucking do the damn job?
Just don't want to run for office.
I mean,
And not only that, maybe they don't want to elect a female into office. Maybe women themselves. I mean, let's look at the way women vote.
yeah. Hey, women
Well, see,
can vote.
the next step is after that is if they do see how
It's not like they're fucking shackled to the damn kitchen.
that's exactly what they'll say. They'll say, well, seeing as how women are, this is their voting behavior. This is further proof that they are oppressed. So we can't listen to we can't count their votes. If a woman doesn't vote
that's
for,
right. It's internalized misogyny. If she doesn't vote for the
doesn't vote for
socialist
Peter
feminist.
Casey, then she is going. Then her vote's not going to count. That's what they're going to say because she's actually oppressed, and we can't. She voted for a man. She's oppressed.
Yeah, if they're not voting for a socialist feminist, then it's internalized misogyny.
Mm-hmm. And their votes.
Wow. I mean, holy shit, dude. I haven't seen an article like that in quite some time.
Well, I mean, what I just said about that would be the next step if these people's logic is continued to go on unchecked, because that's the next step for them.
Yeah, the next
It
step
doesn't
is
matter how many people.
we're going to have to install somebody into office because we can't trust you to vote.
Regardless of what the voters say, we cannot trust the voters. Correct.
Wow. Sexist posters, man. This comes down to sexist posters. I mean, when I read this, I'm thinking of 1984, and all I see is a boot smashing the face of humankind forever and ever and ever. This is exactly what I'm seeing with this kind of shit. Their Ministry of Truth.
Yep, Ministry of Truth.
So they're going to start looking at all these posters, and they're going to say, oh, nope, nope, nope. The man's in the foreground of the poster. Can't have that. Oh, she's smiling. That's sexist. Oh, she's not smiling. That makes her look like an asshole. That's sexist. Oh, the man is in the poster. That detracts from her power. Get him out of there. I mean, this is the type of shit that I'm seeing. These motherfucking people will never be satisfied. You're already getting half and half. Out of 4,000 fucking local council members that they're polling, half of them are going to be women. Now you're telling me that the other half, being comprised of men, are going to take all the positions of power? What power? Half the power? Because that's all they're going to have. What the fuck are they talking about? And then, hold on, I got to go back to this. This nice trite statement here. Only 16% of members are women, and most members are white men over 60. Now, give me a second here. We are dealing with a council. Council. Think about that word and what it engenders. A council. These are overseers. These are individuals who have worldly experience, probably in various fields, who have done them for a long time. When you think of a council person, doesn't that sort of engender the notion of wisdom? And what goes with wisdom? Some age.
Right.
And
experience,
what is what is the hold on?
job.
What is the primary demographic in France? White. White! For crying out loud. So so if most members are white men over 60 and they've been voted in there, then that must mean that the voters recognize experience, wisdom, all those attributes that you would expect to find in a council person. Right?
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's my little diatribe for the day. Maybe. We'll see.
It's 10 o'clock now. Do you want to do a music break before we come back, or do you want to just...
We have no music breaks anymore.
Oh, okay. All right. We don't have music breaks.
We don't have music breaks, man. We are...
It's okay.
Second star on the right.
It's all right.
Straight until morning.
This is this next story is an interesting story. It's coming out of the UK. It has some interesting implications for fathers' rights, for custody rights. An interesting situation. This is coming from the Daily Mail. The story came out today. It is entitled, "Woman Gives Birth to Her Own Son's IVF Baby. Now he wins right to adopt a child. Who is his brother?" That's what the story's titled, but that's not actually true. We'll get to this soon. Anyway, the story reads: a mother has helped her own son become a father by carrying his child as a surrogate. In a procedure believed to be a world first, a fertility clinic arranged the woman's pregnancy using a donor egg and her son's sperm. She offered to have the baby with her husband's consent, after plans by their son to have an IVF child with another female relative collapsed. The extraordinary arrangement emerged when a high court judge ruled that the son can now adopt the baby boy and become his legal father, even though in the eyes of the law, this is where we come now, even though in the eyes of the law, he is also the infant's brother. Now I'm going to stop here and do a little aside. He's not really his child's brother. He has a donor egg. He's provided donor sperm. The egg came from another woman, not his mother, and it's his sperm. His mother was just an incubator. Now, while basically this woman is also this child's grandmother, she's not really the mother. Okay, so but they're not really. I mean, like, so maybe in a roundabout way they might be cousins, I guess you could say, but they're not. They're not. This is a father and child, independent of the mother's genetic involvement. She was basically an incubator. I want to make that clear before I continue reading the story.
Right, and
in the eyes of the law, she is, and this is where it's interesting. In the eyes of the law, they're brothers, but they really aren't. We'll talk about this more. However, the move was met with howls of protest by critics, who described the procedure as, quote, dubious and called for urgent reforms to prevent abuses of fertility law, as if this was some kind of huge abuse. Please, people. Miss Justice Thies, who did not identify the family, the clinic, or the local authority in the area where they live, said, the arrangement the parties entered into is not one, as far as I am aware, that either this court or the clinic have previously encountered, and although highly unusual, is entirely lawful under the relevant statutory provisions. The father, who is in his mid-20s and lives alone, has wanted to be a parent for some considerable time, but waited until he had a settled job and home so he could provide the care a child would need. I want to talk to this kid. The judge said he discussed the issue openly with family and close friends and arranged for another relative to act as surrogate mother, but the woman dropped out because of a medical condition. At that stage, Miss Justice Thee said the man's mother discussed with her husband the possibility of stepping in to help. Something I would think it's completely natural for a mother to do. That sounds, maybe to think that would sound creepy, but I don't think it's too outlandish to do that. The family attended a series of counseling sessions and discussions with the clinic, which is licensed by regulator, the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority, or HFEA. The plans described by the center's medical director as unique were then given the go-ahead after, quote, careful consideration. The baby, now 7 months old, was born at full term and now lives with his father. However, the judge warned others not to embark on surrogacy deals without comprehensive legal surrogacy deals. Without comprehensive legal advice, because the process is a legal minefield. Ms. Justice Thies said that under the 2008 Human Fertilization and Embryology Act, which governs surrogacy arrangements, the woman who carried the child is the legal mother. Her husband is the legal father because he consented to the pregnancy. Now, let's read this again. Ms. Justice Thies said that under the 2008 Human Fertilization and Embryology Act, which governs surrogacy arrangements, the woman who carried the child is the legal mother. Her husband is the legal father because he consented to the pregnancy. Okay, so what that means is in the UK, if you're a man and you want to have you want to have a baby, but you don't have a wife and you don't want one, let's say you're gay, or you just don't want to get married, but you want to become a father and you want to get a surrogate, guess what? Even if you pay her money and she is not the biological mother, your ability to adopt, you have to basically adopt that child. Your ability to parent that child is completely upon her goodwill. And this has happened to couples in the UK before. I remember reading a really sad story where a couple hired a surrogate mother, and I think this was just before 2008, before they put this in the law. This couple, they had a surrogate give birth to their child. The wife could not have one naturally. So I guess maybe she donated an egg, or maybe they got an egg from somebody else. And this woman gave birth to the child, and she decided to keep the baby, and the courts let her keep the baby. And now this poor couple has to pay this woman child support. They don't get to see their kid. Crazy. But anyway, on with the story. Rules stipulate that a surrogate mother must hand over a child to two parents, usually a couple in an enduring family relationship. Okay, again, if you're a single man in the UK, you're screwed. Unless, of course, in this case, you get your mom to help you out. Under the law, it would be a crime to hand over the baby to a biological father alone. I'm going to read that again. Under the law, it would be a crime to hand over the baby to the biological father alone. But the judge argued that the adoption would not break the laws because the baby and his father are legally related already as brothers. This is legally speaking here. Social workers backed the adoption, saying it would, quote, strengthen the bond the father and child already share. A report described how the baby clearly has formulated a secure attachment to the father. Okay, now it's interesting, a report. They had to get some court appointed counselor.
They had to get some kind of
They had to
get
somebody. It had to be up to someone else to decide whether or
They
not.
never would have questioned a thing like that with a mother.
No, ever. They never would have done that with a mom. Okay, adding, the father understands that the child would need to know about how he was conceived and feels that he will utilize the security of the family structure to support his son in understanding that he is a very much wanted child.
Wait, hold on.
As if fathers, single fathers, don't want the child.
But a woman never has to disclose to her crotch spawn the fact that he was a bastard off of a one-night stand.
Yeah, right.
At a drunken
no
orgy.
obligation to tell her kid who the kid's dad is. None whatsoever. Okay. Another report said the mother and her husband regard the child as their grandson, which is what the kid is, adding that the family want the child to know about the circumstances surrounding his birth. Ms. Justice Thies said the closeness of the family was a critical feature of the case. The strength of these familial relationships and the consequent support they provide now and in the future will ensure the child's lifelong needs are met, she added. But last night, critics said the law should never permit such an arrangement. Author and broadcaster on family issues Jill Kirby said, "The ethics in this case are very dubious indeed. If the HFEA considers this to be a legal procedure, there is an urgent need to look at the law again." Interesting. Patricia Morgan, a leading researcher on family policy, said, quote, "This child will have so much confusion in its background. The evidence suggests that the further we move away from two biological parents, the less good that is for the child." Interesting. Robert Flello, Labour MP for Stoke-on-Trent South, said, "This case throws up many concerns and worries. My greatest concern in all this is the potential emotional damage to the child in the years to come, as he tries to work out family relationships that most of us can take for granted. The job of the HFEA, established in 1991, is to license and monitor clinics and embryo research and provide the public with impartial information about both. Its chairman since last year is former accountant Sally Cheshire."
Okay, I've got something to say right off the bat
Please,
here.
I can hear you chomping at the bit.
All right. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and reiterate that this was a donor egg, father's sperm. The father's mother served as an incubator. Okay, willingly did so. They're saying this father has some kind of obligation to tell the child exactly the conditions of its birth. I don't see a problem telling the child the conditions of its birth. That's fine. But they're acting as if it's a complete obligation to do so when a mother is not obligated to tell their crotch spawn that they were the product of a drunken orgy at a frat house. Now, this Robert Fellio, Labour MP for Stoke-on-Trent, when he says that it throws up concerns and worries, and that the greatest one is the potential emotional damage to the child in years to come, as he tries to work out family relationships. This motherfucker is taking a look at everything through the eyes of an authoritarian.
Absolutely.
Through the eyes,
First of all,
through the eyes of the law,
yep.
And what the law tells you is your family. Okay, when matter of fact is that the father is the fucking father. His grandmother was an incubator. How fucking hard is that? How hard is that? How hard is that? Not that hard.
Seriously, when the kid gets to the age where they can understand it, it's not going to be traumatic for the kid. The kid's going to go, "Wow, that's pretty far out, Dad."
Yeah, that's some sci-fi shit going on.
Yeah, hey, Grandma, thanks, but thanks, Mom, Grandma, Grandma.
Whatever.
That doesn't really matter. I mean,
Grandma is going to be grandma, not mother.
Yeah, right. It's still going to be,
but I mean, these asshats who are commenting on this shit are looking at everything.
Here's the problem they have.
Through the lens of what the state says.
Exactly. It's this idea that this family, that this group of people who have a genetic bond, who are helping one of their own reproduce, are arranging it in their own manner, according to their own values and what they want to do with their lives and the lives of their offspring. That is an affront to these people, James. That is something these people do not like. What is this? Individuals making individual choices about their reproduction and how they raise their families? That is something that's an anathema to these people. They don't like this. It's something that is very, very, very...
Unless it's a woman doing it.
It's alarming to them.
Then it's her prerogative.
Well, let's talk about why you think that. Why we think that is. I think it's critical. I think the thing is here, what we're talking about here is we're talking about a father's agency over their own child. We're talking about the father making this decision outside of the purview of the state or from the biological mother of the child, or from
Well,
someone.
I think it goes back to this romantic and utterly facile idea
Oh, no, I think it's more than that.
that women
It's
women
because
are somehow these bastions of life when hey, it took a fountain to make that pool of
well, I
water.
see. Here's the thing. I think that's a big part of it. But I think there's another part of it too. There's something about a man taking control over his genetic destiny that statists don't like. And there's the reason why I think that is, and a lot of people have talked about this, but this idea, because when a man does this, when a man, that's what a family is. You've got a man living under the roof with his children, and in normal cases, there's a wife. That's something. And Erin Pizzi said this. She said this. What the state wants to do is they want to remove that guy, the man, because if you do that, you have what by nature a dependent person, mother and child. Mother and child is dependent on the state,
and the mother and child are not going to buck the authority of the state.
No, they're not going to do it because the state is their source of security.
The state is the new daddy.
Statists know this. And this is why. You can never question a woman's wants because they know that a woman who has just had a child and who's breastfeeding, they know what's first and foremost on her mind. Security. And if the state can simply hand out food stamps, free place to live, or if they can get money out of the dad through child support, and they can rip the family apart, and have a kid who's dysfunctional, it's going to need to be thrown in jail someday. All the better, because that means it's more jobs for jailers, more special ed teachers, more behavioral psychologists in the school system. They know this. They know the scam. They know the scam, and this is why you see this happening. This is why you see statists do this type of thing. They got all bent out of shape whenever a man, as a father, a potential father, a expecting father, when he starts deciding, when he starts asserting his rights to decide his future and the future of his children, they don't like that. That is something that they immediately jump on. And this is a really interesting case, and an interesting example. And it exposes so many things that we're just talking about now here. Also, it raises a lot. It does raise a lot of questions. But I think that it's a positive step forward what this judge has done. I think it bodes well for men's rights in the UK. I think it's interesting, but not for the reason.
I think that give it about 3 years, and these asshats are going to change the law again to make sure that things like this will not happen.
Right. Oh, they'll find. Yeah, absolutely. They'll find some way to just
3 years. We'll come back in 3 years and talk about this and see what happens.
Yep.
All right.
Well, they're not going to let it go. They're not going to just let this go.
No, they can't afford to do that. Because once men start taking control of their own reproduction, it's all downhill, for the structures of power at that point.
Mm-hmm.
What else have you got? Wait a minute.
That's it.
Was that it?
That's it for me.
Well, I've got one more.
Great.
And this is an opinion column coming out of the Toronto Sun. I'm going to go ahead and read this. It was written by Jerry Agar. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. From the Toronto Sun. Domestic violence against men ignored. Domestic abuse leaves a spouse bruised, battered, possibly bleeding internally with broken bones and a severely damaged psyche. Where does he go? Yes, he, the battered man, beaten by a woman who claims to love him. During a recent discussion on my News Talk 1010 radio show about domestic abuse, a caller named Robert took exception to the media always, in his assessment, portraying the man as the perpetrator and the woman as the victim. Robert suggested someone should do an ad campaign portraying the other side of the debate. I challenged him by saying, "Why don't you do it?" So he did. The ad campaign is being sponsored by the Canadian Association for Equality, starting with a billboard to go up Wednesday in the heart of Toronto, at the corner of Bedford and Davenport Roads. The billboard features the image of an angry woman towering over a cowering male. It reads, "Half of domestic violence victims are men. No domestic violence shelters are dedicated to us." It includes the Twitter tag Let's Talk Men and the website www.equalitycanada.com. So are they right? Is female domestic violence against men as serious as they claim? Robert, he prefers not to make his last name public, provided me with a paper by Professor Martin S. Fibert of the Department of Psychology of California State University at Long Beach. References examining assaults by women on their spouses or male partners. This annotated bibliography describes 343 scholarly investigations, 270 empirical studies, and 73 reviews, demonstrating that women are as physically aggressive as men or more in their relationships with their spouses or opposite-sex partners. The aggregate sample size in the reviewed studies exceeds 440,850 people. Justin Trotter of Cafe says, "Men are victims, but whether it is macho stereotypes or the fact that hospitals and police don't take domestic violence as seriously when men are the victims, men are less likely to take action." A Statistics Canada report says females continue to be the most likely victims of police-reported spousal violence, accounting for 83% of victims compared to 17% of males. This holds true for every province and territory across Canada. Robert told me that he doesn't take issue with the fact men are physically stronger and can thus inflict more damage in domestic assaults, but that is not the story of domestic violence, which is a power and control issue. When society views men as always the perpetrators and women as always the victims, a tremendous amount of power and control is given to abusive women. Trottier says, "There are systems we can put in place to encourage men to report. When men come to the hospital with bruises, the hospital doesn't ask whether these bruises are the result of domestic violence, but it's standard practice to ask a woman who comes into an emergency room whether she has bruises or not, whether she is a victim of domestic violence." There have been a couple of test cases, hospitals that have started asking both men and women whether they are victims, and they find that a surprisingly high percentage of men are coming in for that reason. Trottier recommends gender-neutral policies at hospitals. He stresses Cafe's campaign isn't to distract from the importance of helping female victims, but to address societal attitudes toward male victims. It's a worthwhile effort, as illustrated by a text a listener sent during my show stating, "These guys deserve to be punched."
Jeez.
Go figure. Go figure. But yeah, I mean, for all we know, that individual who sent that text could have just been a asshole troll, or meant it some other way. We don't know. But look, the fact of the matter is that I think this opinion column really laid it out well, and
Yeah, fair. Starting to see more fairness in opinion columns, I think.
yeah, well, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice but to begin to be fair. We've really don't get me wrong. I mean, the narrative is still squarely on the other side of the feminist anti-feminist divide right now, as far as who's being the loudest, the longest. But there are more and more people that are coming out and saying that This is a bunch of bullshit. We've been lied to for a very long time. And the people that are lying to us are in our halls of power and in our halls of academia.
And they've been doing it for a very long time.
A very long time. So there we go. That's all I had as far as.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all we got. I think that's it, folks.
Well, you want to call it a night then?
Yeah, let's call it a night. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's now 10:15. Hopefully next week we'll have a guest for y'all. But it was still a good show. We like to do these free-for-alls every once in a while. Kind of clears the air, gets the cobwebs out of our head, and of course we gotta keep on giving you folks things. We know we've been kind of sparse lately, but holidays happen and other things happen, but we're still here. So join us next week.
Folks, take the red pill.